It is 10 a.m. So I want to welcome you all. I'm sure more people will join us, but we're going to get started. I'm Sonia Doing. I am an award-winning creative writer, published author, CEO of Plot Duckies, and we are a publishing and writer event business. And I'm also one of your municipal liaisons for NaNoWriMo, and that's really hard to say, so we just call them MLs. And so when you see scheduled events on the NaNoWriMo website, those are from me as well as the other ML, which is Kim, and she's not here this morning. And so we will both be scheduling a lot of virtual events to help you guys get through your writing. And then we have Rainey. Rainey, introduce yourself.
I'm Rainey. I was a former ML for a number of years. I've been doing NaNoWriMo since I think 2009. Poet mostly now, so I haven't done NaNoWriMo in a couple of years, but I've probably written 7 books, none published, a couple of agents looked at some of them, and quite a few short stories published. But yeah, very excited to kind of jump back in, even if not writing so much, but certainly enjoying NaNoWriMo.
Cool. And do you have a story idea for your NaNoWriMo?
Ooh, goodness. I think this year I'm going to be focusing on my poetry. Certainly, probably not 50K worth, but still going to be playing NaNoWriMo and trying to bust out a lot more words than I usually do.
Cool. Okay. Well, I know so I already have a series that's adventure, mystery, thriller, right? But I wanted to do something different this year. So this year I am working on, it's going to be a 3-novel sci-fi series with my character Sky. I actually have a short story I wrote about this world. So I want to take that and turn that into a 3-part novel or 3-novel series. So we'll see how that goes. All right, now I know we have a few people who said they have no idea. All right. Okay. So how about you guys who do have ideas? If you want to share that in the chat, do you have an idea for your book this year, for your novel? And a few people say they're not sure. Okay, cool. We'll definitely talk about how to get those ideas for your story. And that's coming up next. And Tamsin Silver, I'm just going to let you know, Tamsin Silver is going to join us soon. She's also a published author. She meant to sign up as an ML this year, but didn't get a chance to. So she will be sort of a non-official ML this year. All right. Oh, writing nonfiction, not a bad idea. So I did that a couple years ago. I wrote a nonfiction and I was happy about it because I use November to write my stories and then I use the rest of the year to edit them. And I have 4 published books and I wouldn't have those if it wasn't for Nano. So I'm totally there for the rebels. If you're using this to write nonfiction, if you're using this to rewrite something you've already written, yeah, I'm totally there for you. Oh, okay. So Jennifer says she's done role-playing RPGs, but she wants to do some real writing. All right, I'm going to still call you a real writer because RPG stuff is not easy either. All right. Okay, so we're going to, oh, Tamsin is just joining us. And so I am going to start talking about story ideas in a minute. We're going to let Tamsin introduce herself when she gets here. Oh. Okay. Joanna says she's got an idea that she wants to expand on. Tamsin, are you here?
I am here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tamsin Silver, and I am at the car dealership. So that's why, but it's a great view back there. So anyway, I am a historical fantasy and urban fantasy author. I am represented by Falstaff Books. They are a medium-sized press out of North Carolina. And I have books out with both self-published, small press, and medium. And I'm currently right now, I just had 2 books released this past year for the urban, it's historical fantasy. It's based on New Mexican history with Billy the Kid. And so, and I've been doing Nano since 2010. And actually the book I wrote in 2010 for Nano will be coming out with Falstaff this next year. So,
Yay! Nice.
so yeah, so that is, and other than that, background is I'm a certified teacher, but I'm not currently teaching. I am, and thankful of that. And I work for a hospital from home. So that is my current world.
Nice. Well, and tell me, so do you know what you're working on for this November?
I do. I am, so the contract for the Untold Legend series ended up becoming 3 books when I'd only written 2. So I am finishing that 3rd book right now, and it's called The Murder of Cricket Kugler, and art for it's already done, so it's on my Nano page, and it's almost done. It just needs some work for it. And so that's what I'm going to use Nano to finish so I can get that into the publisher so we can see that come out in 2021.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. Well, I'm going to kick us off by talking about, and of course, that's my dog in the background because he's going crazy just as I'm on a meeting.
Of course.
Right. I'm going to talk about how we come up with story ideas. So I am going to go through a few things here. Now, first of all, if any of you, okay, coming out with story ideas, let's talk about fan fiction. Like maybe you're a fan of a series or a genre and there's a character you feel wasn't developed correctly or you don't see enough of. You could pick one of those characters and write about it. Not my favorite books, but here's an example. So what's it called? The 50 Shades of Grey was written as a fan fiction for I saw that eye roll. Was written
So
as
sorry.
That's okay.
Can anyone else even see me? Is it just you who
Probably.
sees me, by the way?
It might have been
Okay.
everybody. I don't know.
Awesome. I don't care.
Well, you know, that's the way I feel about it.
Thanks, Damien. I appreciate it. Oh, it's just so bad. Oh, it's just, I can't.
I
All right,
know.
continue.
It's a
Continue, it's
terrible
fine.
example, but
It's a really bad example.
it was written as fan fiction for another series I don't like, which is can someone tell me?
Twilight.
Twilight. Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah.
Right. They took characters and they took them in a different direction, and so you could do that if you didn't want to be, you know, stepping on copyright. You change their names, you change it a little bit. So that's a good idea for getting, and then plus the characters are already sort of created, so you have something to work with. So that's one idea that you can do. Images. I feel images can sometimes inspire me for ideas. So I am going to show you. If you have any friends or anyone you know, or just search Inktober. I have a friend who does Inktober and she does these amazing drawings. I bought one because it's inspiring me for another story. So here are some of her images that she's done for Inktober. And like this makes me think of maybe a witch's necklace, you know, and there's something going on here and maybe that's blood, and you know, so images give me a lot of ideas for stories. I'm going to show you a few more here. That's obviously a Doctor Who image if you're a Doctor Who fan. I love this. 3 blind mice love to play radio at night. Maybe you're looking for a cute little, you know, story about mice. That's an interesting idea. And then I thought this was wonderfully gross. The Tooth Fairy's birthday feast was a cake made of teeth. I was like, ew, but it's a really,
Ew.
right? But it's a really interesting idea. So look up images, or even a lot of the museums have online tours. You could take a tour of a museum. There are some museums that are releasing images copyright free of historical things, taking a look at those. So that's an idea to dive through images. Use your dreams or your nightmares. I had a terrible nightmare last week and I could not get rid of it. So I wrote a story with these evil monsters in it and added heroes. And I published it last night as a short story on Amazon. Evil Nuns from Space is what it's called.
As you do.
Yep, right.
That's awesome.
And I could have expanded that into a larger novel, but it's not something I love to write. So I just finished that off as a short story. You can also check your spam. Sometimes we get kooky ideas from spam. I checked my spam a couple weeks ago and there was an email in there from a guy supposedly who does photography at, high class houses. And he's got these beautiful images and there's an image of him standing next to a Ferrari. And I was wondering, well, does he really own that Ferrari, or is he like some kind of grifter, who wants to get into these fancy houses to, up to nefarious deeds? Because, that's the way my imagination goes. So maybe check your spam. And let's see. All right, Tamsin or Rainey, do you guys have ideas on how to come up with story ideas?
I always start with the character. I sometimes don't even know where my story's going. I just see the person. In fact, the first Nano book I did in 2010 was Moon Over Manhattan. And I'll be honest, I was reading another book. I don't remember which one at the moment. And there was a werewolf in it who I was in love with, just loved him. And his character was just fantastic. And I woke up and I must have been having a dream. And I know you mentioned that, but like, so I get in the shower and it was all of a sudden like this character was loud. She was so loud. And I was like, okay, fine then. What's your name? And I heard her name, Denica. I was like, well, shit. So I just started writing her. All I knew was that she was an alpha in New York. And I just started writing and seeing how complicated a person she was. She's sincerely complicated and loud. So that's one of the things I do is I like to take and go, okay, I know I want to write about someone who has experienced this. It does not have to be something that you have actually experienced. It can be something that you've researched. It can be something that your friend has experienced. So I really hate the line, if you don't know, don't write. Because I just think that's kind of BS. I think that's why we have research and the internet and you can talk to people. I never would have written any of the Billy the Kid stuff if I just stuck with what I knew, which was New York City at the time. So I think that if you have a character whose story you want to tell, that is the key. Start with them doing something. It can be something mundane. It can be something that's going to end up still in the story, but think about them, start writing them. And I don't care if it's first person, second, third, whatever, just find a character you really like that you want to talk about, that you want to share about. And I think that's the biggest key for me.
Yeah. And a lot of my ideas kind of percolate for a long time, so I don't actually know where they come from. But I will say, as a tip for coming up with story ideas, keep a little notebook by you all the time. I have dozens of these and they're all over the house and my partner is not a fan. But yeah, always having a little pocket notebook next to me and a pen that way there, because the more you think about your story, the more the ideas are just going to pop up in the middle of nowhere. We even have a waterproof notebook in the shower, so that if you're in the shower and all of a sudden pop an idea, and I'm the type of person where 30 seconds after the idea comes up, it's gone if you don't write it down. So we even have a waterproof one in the shower, so that write a little note there. But yeah, for me, it's a lot of just keeping pen and paper close by, so that as those ideas come up, you can just write them down real quick.
Cool. And I almost bought that shower paper, but because I have the same things happen to me, and I rush out of the shower and I'm like, oh my God, I got to write this down. I do want to add to what Tamsin said about research, because One, it wasn't my first novel, but Toy of the Gods was one of the first nanos I wrote. And it's based in the Amazon. I have never been to the, well, when I wrote it, I hadn't been to the Amazon. But since then, I've been to the Amazon so I could actually make it more realistic. But don't be afraid. I totally agree with her. Don't worry about writing exactly what you know. And if it is something you need to do research on, I suggest doing as much research as you can before November 1st. Pardon me. And then when you're writing and you come across something that needs research, don't stop and research in November. Just put,
Yeah, no,
right?
no, that is not the time.
All right.
Because you will go down a rabbit hole and you will all of a sudden realize you've lost an entire day and be like, well, crap, now I still have to get my 1,000 whatever words. And you're just like, shit.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So just put, like, I put an asterisk or a symbol in that space, and I actually put the words needs research or something. So I know I have to come back to that when I'm in editing. So yeah, good points, everybody. So that's some ways to get story ideas. And then also, if it comes to November 1st and you still don't feel like you have a fully fleshed idea, I highly suggest just sitting down and writing and sprinting, which I'll talk more about sprinting, but sometimes you have ideas in your brain that you don't even know that you have. So I wouldn't stress too much about the ideas, but just keep your mind open and your eyes open for the next couple weeks. Wait, today's the 24th. Okay, maybe not the next couple weeks, but the next week, keep your mind open for ideas. All right, next thing is talking about building character. Now, as Tamsin said, she builds her stories off of character. I tend, well, especially in the beginning, I tended to focus on activities in my story versus character. When I edit, I tend to focus more on character. But I do find, especially when I'm writing short stories, that it really helps to get to know your character. So now I do tend to write up a character script before I do my nano. And what I mean by that is I tend to create a spreadsheet of questions for my character, and maybe I have an interview with them. Like Tamsin said, sometimes my characters talk to me, and excuse me. So for example, I'll figure out, okay, somebody else talk. I'm going to cough for a second.
As she just coughs and no one talks. I guess one of the things I might mention to fill up some space here, as far as, she's saying we write from character and figuring out, if you don't know what you're going to write, just start sprinting. What she said is right. You just start coming up with and just start getting words on paper. Every word you do for nano counts. If you write a whole paragraph, or I don't care, pages, and if those pages are not going to end up on your book, that's okay, because it's counting for your nano. It doesn't matter. So don't go back. Just keep going. Just keep going. Even if you're like, oh, that's utter shite. Keep writing, keep moving. You'll eventually get there. And if you don't get there and you don't really have a clear vision of how you really want it to all go until nano is over, but you've still written 50K that you can work with, that's still a win. So something to keep in mind.
Cool. All right, so character, what I was trying to say was write up your character's background before nano. Like, where did they grow up? How do they dress? What jobs have they had? What do their parents do? Do they have any mannerisms or characteristics that make them different from the other characters? So, which that helps when you have, a lot of characters in your story. Are there ways to make them very different? So, for example, in one of my stories, I have a character who's always got a drink in his hand. And he's an older character, so he tends to say words like an older person would. And then think about it this way: if you throw your character in a situation, a character who's a truck driver from New York is going to act differently than a ballerina from California, you know? So knowing their backgrounds helps you know how they're going to react in different situations. So, um,
I used to tell people, pretend you're going on a date with your character, because when you do that first date, all you do is ask all those questions. So, what do you like? What do you do? Where do you live? Where'd you go to school? Like it, that's one of the best ways to think about it. If you're like, well, I don't know what to ask my character, think about it as a first date.
nice. And what you might also want to do, if you have that character in mind, is to write like a prequel or not a prequel, but an introduction to your novel using that character. Um, so writing an introduction to the novel using that character is just like a little tiny short story. So you actually get to know how that character reacts in certain situations and you get to know them a little better. And that gets you warmed up for Nano. But you don't have to do that. You absolutely don't have to. You could just start writing on November 1st. But that's all I have on character. Now, Rainy, now so I'm a plantser. I both plan a little bit and I pants a little bit, meaning that I kind of go by the seat of my pants when I'm writing in November. Rainy is more of a planner, and he's going to talk about building plot. Oh,
Yeah,
real quick, oh,
I get kind of nerdy.
well, can I, real quick, Rainey, I do want to answer Jennifer's question. Jennifer is saying, so is this just for the protagonist or all the characters? So I will honestly, if I know all the characters that are going to be in the story, I will write short sections about each of them so I do know who they are and where they're from. The main characters, though, they're the ones I focus on building a larger base of information. So there's your answer. And there you go, Rainey. Sorry.
You're good. But yeah, I kind of nerd out for a couple of months before NaNoWriMo, and I get pretty intense with my plotting because I tend to be the sort of person who, if I'm writing because I need to get 1,677 words out, you know, that can easily stop me from writing. So if I've plotted out the vast majority of all my character arcs and character names and what's going to happen in each little scene, it makes it easier for me to, when I do have that block, to say, okay, I don't know exactly how this scene should finish, so let's just jump to the next one. So I'll actually spend time, and I used to have a giant 4x12 whiteboard where I'd try to map out what I wanted to talk about, because like my last series of books were young adult dystopian. So, what do I want to talk about? What social commentary do I want to make? What are the drives of my characters? Because part of the plotting out the plot itself is knowing your characters well enough to know how they're going to interact with the story. So I spent a lot of time, you know, basic scene notes, and even if you're kind of half pantsing it, since there's only a week left, in the midst, like Sonia mentioned, if you have that block, then start, or Tamsin might have mentioned it, that, just start writing notes about, okay, I don't exactly know what this scene is going to be, but I still have 1,600 words to go. Just start taking notes. Okay, I know I want this to happen. I know this needs to happen, and try to play it out that way. And that tends to at least keep the juices flowing and give you those ideas to then go, okay, now I know. And again, like Tamsin said, don't delete, just keep on going and finish that scene. Uh, let's see. Where are my notes? So yeah, I having a whiteboard if you're into that, notebooks. I also keep Google Docs open because there's usually 6 or 8 pages worth of bullet points that I plan out. And Sonia is much more into Scrivener. I still don't fully grasp how it all works, but there's plotting and note taking options in there as well. But yeah, I tend to use Google Docs and tons of notebooks and notes everywhere.
Yeah, I use notebooks, notes. I'm still old school and use Word, so like don't feel like you can't write or you can't if you're like, I don't know Scrivener. That's okay. That's what Word Docs is there for. Just go.
All right. Any other applications that you use for plotting, Rainey?
In all honesty, I'm fairly old school. I use Google Docs mostly so that I don't lose it if my computer dies on me.
Good point.
But yeah, just Google Docs where I just keep bullet points of chapter and story arcs and little bits. I tried using Excel to try to like
Oh God,
get
yeah.
really nerdy and plot out all the points, and I got bogged down in how Excel works, so I had to give up on that.
Yeah, I tried it once too, and it was too much. Felt like I had to get out of there. Tamsin, do you how do you focus on a plot? How do you make sure your plot is moving forward?
So I write a lot of action. Like people are always talking about, oh, what did someone talk about the other day? We need another scene in here. A campfire scene is what they called it, where people just kind of sit and chat. One of the things for me, when I write urban fantasy, historical fantasy, is the question for me is, does this scene change anything? Does it move anything? Um, do we see, like, is this actually going to take us somewhere? Like, uh, after this scene, are you the better for it? Have you learned something about the character or about the plot or about anything like that? For me, that's one of the biggest tells. If I read a scene and I'm like, I didn't learn anything I needed here, uh, then why is it here at all? So for me, one of the things I just like to focus on is, does the scene move me forward? Does the reader learn anything? Does that answer the question?
Yes, it did. Thank you very much.
Okay.
All
I was
right.
like, what was the full question again?
It's okay. All
Sorry,
right,
guys.
so there is some conversation now in the chat about Scrivener. And actually, I'll talk a little bit about Scrivener when we get to the organizing, how to organize. Since I'm a super fan of Scrivener, I'll show you my screen on that. Anything else from Rainey or Tamsin on plot?
I'm a pantser. Um, and everyone who knows me knows this. The only thing that if you write historical, I would recommend is I didn't do an outline. What I did is I got a calendar. I found out what day, was Sunday. It was January 1st, a Monday, Tuesday, what in that night, in that year, 1940, like the year 1949 or 1878. Then I found what year corns like is the same, and I printed that up from Outlook. And I used it to write down where all the big historical things that really mattered happened, and then you'd see huge gaps. And then I would use a second calendar, and I would use that, and I would mark the gaps there for the fantasy stuff I was inserting in there, so that I knew I didn't step on something. So I mean, that's kind of one thing. If you're doing historical, I would recommend a calendar if you're not good at doing outlines.
Great. And I think that's funny. We have a pantser, a planter, and a planner. Perfect. Perfect
Nice.
combo. All right. So, anything else that you had, Rainey?
No, no.
No? Okay. All right. So, Amanda, we are moving on to world building, and Tamsin is going to talk about world building for us.
Awesome. All right. So I want you guys to throw some questions into the chat. I can't see them, but Sonia will let me know what they are. Um, what you what about world building stumps you the most is kind of the most important thing. What is it about world building that you feel that you're just not catching on to? One of the things for me, and I'll talk about this while you guys are putting some comments in. When I first started writing, I had a problem with word vomit. I would do a lot of, you'd have a whole paragraph and it would just give you all kinds of world information and you needed to know it and all that. And I just didn't understand how to feed it in. And one of the things, I'm known for world building, and part of that comes with my background in Shakespeare because I used to run a theater company. We did a lot of Shakespeare. I'm all about the world build and creating something complex that you feel that you actually could step into. Um, some people like to build that world on paper. They like to draw maps. They like to add in information and history. Uh, you can do that, or you can figure that out as you go. It really just depends. Most importantly, is a Bible. Now, I'm not talking the Jesus Bible, I am talking a book Bible. And this is something that my editor does for me. Praise God, Melissa, I love you. You're the best thing in my world. And what she does is, as she's editing my books, and you can do this as you write your books, and I should have, and I didn't, and that's on me. Uh, and you keep track of things like, all right, this spell is written this way, and this is what it does. And this character is from here, their eye color is this, they're this tall, so that when you get back to them again, you're not shit, what color is his hair, and then you go looking for it. It's a waste of time. So one of the things that helps in world building is a book Bible. Any questions coming in, Sonia?
Yes. So
Okay.
first of all, we have Daryl. Hi, Daryl.
Hey, Daryl.
Daryl says, tips and tricks for world building without it coming across as info dump.
Oh, the almighty info dump, which is word vomit. Um, so I just was using a funnier title because it's early morning, man, and I'm standing in the car dealership. Uh, so I'm dreading money spent. So one of the things I found that helps is you need to first figure out what's the important pieces of that world build. And I'm really sorry if you guys can hear that horn honking in the distance. I apologize. The Figure out what's important. What does that reader need to know about your world that helps them understand what's going to happen? Now, you're going to say they need to know it all. They don't. They really don't. They don't need to know every little bit that you need to know. And so one of the things I like to do is I like to scatter the information, because as much as we like to think I gave them that information in chapter 1, by chapter 10 they should know. Not if you've not mentioned it again, they sure as hell won't. Maybe they've got a great memory, but you might need to like remind them once or twice on things. Faith Hunter does that a lot. If you've ever listened or read her Jane Yellow Rock series, she will remind you of things as she goes, because there's a lot going on in urban fantasy specifically. But one of the best ways to do it is to say, okay, this next section, I've written all this info dump. What really out of this is needed for this next portion? What do they have to know to make this resonate with them so that they understand the stakes? Because the stakes are the key. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that they have enough for that, and then you can add more in the next time. Just think of peppering it. I like to look at it like this. Did I write more than a paragraph? And is that paragraph longer than this on a page? It's too much. I actually do it visually. I look at it and go, okay, that's 3 paragraphs of crap. I don't think anyone wants to sit and read that. So I'll drop it down to a paragraph, maybe a paragraph and a half or something. But that's kind of my biggest thing for me, is if I've done too much world building on one page, that's wrong.
Okay, and I just want to add, maybe having someone else read it as well, and you specifically ask them, tell me where you see dumping, because sometimes we don't recognize that we're just
Oh yeah.
all the stuff. Yeah.
Yep. And I recommend, and this is I'm passing this jewel of knowledge. I'm passing this on from a bunch of New York Times bestselling authors that I speak on panels with at Dragon Con and stuff like that. And they had talked to me, and I had to learn this myself. I didn't know. They said, if you're going to have beta readers, make sure they're not writers. Now, you're all about to balk at that. I know you are. Because I was like, but those are all my friends. They're all writers. You need to find people who love the genre, who don't then look at it like how they would write it. And that's going to be the best beta reader for you. Anyway, I just want to throw that out there because you mentioned readers.
Cool. Thank you.
Any what other questions you got coming in?
Okay.
Anything?
So yes, we have a few questions. So Jennifer says,
Awesome,
I'm used to working in already established worlds, so creating a new world is a bit intimidating. How do I make it realistic?
You have a couple options with making it realistic. You can choose a real place and do the research and find photos, and you can make it a real place. That's going to be one of the easiest ways. And I say easy, but that's in quotes because I chose to write about a real place, and it was 3 years of research. So easy is, it's up to you. You can also keep it even more simple. You can invent your own place. It can still be Earth. One of the ways I have a lot of writer friends do this to help them world build is they start creating their own place and they base it on Earth. Or they base it, I mean, if it's sci-fi, it's probably not so much, but they take what they know and they build on it. It can be either or. It depends on what scares you more. Because if you're just starting out writing, you're not going to choose what scares you more. And you know what? That's totally cool. You don't want to probably, unless you've reached a point where like, I need that kind of challenge. Then yeah. But honestly, one of the best ways not to let it overwhelm you is just to remember that it's your choice. And guess what? You're not wrong because you're the author and you're the one making this up. So it's not wrong. It's just whatever you like. So do I like it? Then move on. It is, and obviously you'll want people to tell if you're missing anything from that world, but like you'll know when you write, if you've not touched on something political or something that is going on, I have a tendency to forget to put in things that are happening around them. And then when I go through and draft again, I tend to put that in there. So do not worry that as you write, your world build does not feel full. You will know what's missing because as you read it again and again, you'll see what's missing. So one of the best ways to not let it worry you is forgiveness.
Cool.
You're just writing it. So anyway, next question.
All right. Amanda says, I found that the details can be endless and bog me down. For example, the character's eating bread. What grain is the bread? What environment did the grain require to grow, etc.? So I'd really like advice on how not to drill down to this level.
Okay. Think about it this way. I mentioned it before. Does anyone care? Does it move the story? Do I need to know that they are gluten intolerant? Does that come into play later? Do they have to have high grain bread? Will they later on be forced to eat it or accidentally eat it? Does fairy give them something at some point and it causes sickness, making them not able to fight, which is the reason why they actually they're captured and put in a cage because normally they're too strong to be captured. So if drilling down to that information is going to give people basis and support things in the story later, then it's not a problem. If you're drilling down and it doesn't actually do anything, it doesn't need to be there. So, if you want to say she's drinking tea because she prefers tea, that's fine. You're not drilling down to, she has to have Earl Grey, cream of Earl Grey with a squish of orange and
squish.
So a squish, squish. So it's one of those things that if it doesn't, you would love to know.
If it's not involved with the plot, it's not important. That's good to know.
It's not. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
All right. Lisa Baca says, how best to world build when the setting already exists, such as Washington State?
Okay. So, okay, quick question. What genre do you write? Can she answer that real quick? That might help me a little bit.
Okay.
And while specifically, and while she does that, I can do a general answer.
She's saying murder mystery.
Okay. All right. And so you're using the real DC. You don't have to ever give the year. That'll help. Unless you're wanting to use things that are specifically going on. You can not ever mention when it is. It's hard, but you can do that. if you're wanting to use a real place, best thing you can do is really research locations that give you the feel for your story. No one is going to, no one's going to care that maybe that didn't really happen. It's fiction. Uh, they will care though if they live in DC and you say there's a monument in such and such park and there isn't, unless you mention it was just built or something like that. So if you're using a real place, I always recommend getting as close to real history as you can with it. However, I don't think that you have to be super true because you are writing fiction and you can get away with that.
Cool.
Does that answer that?
I think so. And then Kat says, I'm writing urban fantasy, but that's usually set in a real world city. Is it okay to build a similar world and have urban fantasy in a made up setting instead of a real place?
Yeah, yeah, totally. Not only that, but you can build another world inside the real one you're using. I do that often. Like there's this whole clandestine world that's operating underneath it. If you do that, you have to remember to include things like how you're going to hide that and all that kind of stuff. Like, why wouldn't I have seen that? I like to bring vampires into goth clubs because everybody there looks like they are one anyway. But that's something that that I do that helps. But it doesn't. Does that answer the question?
Yes,
Can you?
yes, I think
Okay.
so. Okay.
Okay. Good.
And then Liz B, hi Liz. So Liz B just wants to share a comment to everyone to help keep yourself out of the details. Write with a timer. When you only have 1 hour to draft the chapter, you will skim over the meaningless details more easily. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Yep.
Liz.
That's awesome. Yep. I have a tendency not even to put in a lot of internal stuff. I have a tendency just to get that dialogue and the stuff going when I do nano. So
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
and so anything else on world building you'd like to share with us?
Mostly love the world you're writing. Go think about it as something you really want people to enjoy. Think about how you enjoy it. And one of the things is that the more complete you give them in their world without going over, the more invested they will be, the more they're going to want more in that world, and the more you get to write in that world. So my publisher really loves the world I've built for the Billy the Kid stuff. And they're like, can we branch out on this? I'm like, yes, I built it specifically for that reason. You don't have to do that. It's me. I like to do that because I write series and, if you're going to write more. So, but other than that, world building is something that takes time. It is something that you won't be good at right away. But I want one of the most important things you can do with it is have fun with it. And that is going to make a world of difference.
Nice. Yay. Thank you, Tamsin.
You're
Cool.
welcome. I'm going to have to go off here for just a second because he came out to tell me about my car. I'll be
Okay.
right back.
Okay. Thanks. All right, so I wanted to add to the world building. So because I'm writing sci-fi coming up, what I did was I wrote this, first of all, I wrote the short story because it was just in my head. And I know the short story is just really a first chapter in the novel and it needs to become a longer story. What I did was I took that short story, I sent it to 2 scientists and another person who I know is kind of a futurist, and I had a meeting with the 3 of them, and they helped me build sort of this future world. And not only that, like something I didn't see coming, they created a whole reason for this whole story, which I didn't see before. And so meeting with other people who might help you build that world, and I made changes to the short story because it changed sort of that world a little bit. But now I totally know what this world looks like. I need to do some more character building, but other than that, I know where the story's going to go. So that's another option too, is meeting with other people who have experience in that field that you're working in. All right, next up is organizing your story. I'm going to talk real quick about Scrivener and Word. I tend to use Scrivener. Who am I kidding? I always use Scrivener, except when I'm writing short stories, I'll put it directly in Pages. So this is my Scrivener. What you can see on the left-hand side are all my folders, right? These are all my folders. And what I love about Scrivener is I can put characters in here. So I have all my characters, and I especially do that because sometimes my characters' names are spelled weird, and a lot of times I'll just skip down here and see how they're spelled and then go back to writing. Right, but it has all my characters. If I have any research, I will put research in here. So I did some research on things in the Amazon, a necklace. I put some specifications in here about a necklace because I'm going to refer to it again later. Russian names, Peru names. I've got to change some of my character names in here. What I really do, so what I will do before November 1st, I will create a whole new Scrivener project, and I will come in here and I will create chapters as an outline. So I usually always have scenes in my head of my story that I know need to happen, and I will put them in here as their own little chapter, name them exactly what the scene is going to be. And I usually start with like 6 to 10 scenes listed out. And so that's my planner part. I have part planner, list out the scenes I know need to happen, not necessarily in order. And then when Nano starts, I just start writing. And then as I'm writing, I usually come up with more scenes, or I find ways to connect the scenes together. So that's why I'm a plantser. I use Scrivener. So for example, this is a Nano I did last year. These are all the scenes that are in there. I like to use, you see these little icons to the left of the chapters. They tell me where I'm at. So these are in final draft mode, these ones with the little blue thing. The ones that just look like pieces of paper, those are first draft mode. The ones that are little symbols here are just little comments type things, or these are things that I need to include in the chapters that already exist. And you can do things like that by right-clicking on any of these chapters, and you can change the icons to anything you want. That to me helps me organize my chapters, because I know what's just what is just an outline mention, what is a first draft, what is a second draft, what's a final draft. So that's how I use Scrivener. This keeps me super organized. I love it more than Word. Plus what I like is I can easily, let's say I feel like this chapter needs to move, I can grab it, I can move it anywhere. And then when you compile, you do a file compile, and you can push it out into Word. And once I do that, once I'm to the point where I'm formatting it for an ebook or print, I leave it in Word or Pages. I work in Pages. I tend to work in Pages, but it also does Word. So let's see. I can't see comments. Let me
Someone's asking how to keep track of the daily word count for
Oh.
NaNoWriMo in Scrivener.
Oh, good point. Okay. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, so project, if you go up to project and show project targets, it will show you how many words, and then if you're each day, it will show you your session target. So your session target is how many words you've written that day. So that was project show project targets. And then just make sure that you have, okay, so right now I'm in a chapter. On the far right hand side are all these options up here. You want to make sure it's include in the compile, and that way it includes it in the project target numbers. Any other questions on Scrivener? And actually let me stop share. I do have a Scrivener event coming up if anyone wants to learn how to use it. So what you can do is you can download it for 30 days for free. And then if you finish Nano, which you all will finish Nano, I'm sure, you'll get the coupon to get, usually they give you 40% off of Scrivener. If you guys are at all interested in the event, it's like $12 and it's like a hour long. Yeah, it's $12. I think it's an hour long or so, and we'll go into super detail. I just put the link in the chat if you're interested. But I answer all questions, any and all questions on Scrivener in there. Other ways to organize, if you're not a Scrivener fan, you can totally use Word. So when I used to use Word to write a full novel, I would make sure each of the chapter headings used header formatting. And if you don't know what that is, you can search that up. I don't have Word on this computer. And then if you use headers, you can create sort of a table of contents at the front of your document and update it to show you your chapters, and you can click on those and take you to those chapters. So it's a quick and easy way to use Word to organize a novel. Okay, and I just want to see, I don't use Scrivener, but I do use forthewords.com for word count goals. It gamifies writing and makes daily word counts easy to keep track of. Cool. That sounds cool, Kat. I have never checked out forthewords.com, but I'll have to check that out. And Stacy says Scrivener is finally working on updates for Windows. Yeah, I know. I noticed that. What was it, last year? They had that full update for Adobe, but they don't have the update yet for Word, I think, for the latest version. And then Scrivener full cost is $40. It's true. Yeah, it is a one-time cost. I will say that I did get the app for my phone, and what's supposed to happen is you have Scrivener, you have your files on a Dropbox folder, and when you use it on your phone, it's supposed to update, and it's totally messed my stuff up. So I don't use the app on my phone anymore. I don't necessarily suggest it, but I do love the Scrivener on my Mac. Kat says it's like a video game where you beat monsters by writing words. I love that. Kelly says, I'm trying to get mine moved from one computer to another, having some tech issues. You might have to, so what I had to do is I had to go into the old computer and turn off the, I don't know if turn off is the correct terminology, but basically remove that license for Scrivener to get it on the other one. Oh, okay, you did that, but it didn't work. So yeah, I think I had issues too at some point, and they were really good at getting back to me. So hopefully they get back to you, Kelly. Okay, other ways of organizing. So I am a super fan of organizing my notebook. I'm sure all of you have piles of notebooks somewhere with stuff in them. I prefer to keep mine organized because now I know where all my stuff is. And so, for example, I keep tabs of every kind of subject that I write about. So, for example, I have a section called funny, a section called weird, because I like to write about weird things, scary, sci-fi. I have a specific chapter on characters. And then I have specific sections on both my series that I'm working on. My Sky is my character in my sci-fi, and then the Idolmaker series, which is my current published series. So that way, as I'm writing in Nano and I'm like, okay, I need some new ideas, I'll open this up. And so, for example, let's see. Oh yeah, so in my weird file, I have this elevator. I don't know if I'll ever write about it. So there's an elevator in Vegas. So when I go to RollerCon, which is a huge roller derby conference, there is an elevator in the Westgate, in one part of the Westgate, and it's so annoying, but it's really old and beautiful and Art Deco. And if you go in, if too many people push buttons to go to their floors, like if you push more than 5, the elevator resets, sends you back to the bottom, and then everyone tries to push buttons again, sends you back to the bottom until someone steps in front of the buttons and says, nope, we can only do like 2 floors at a time. And so I wrote that down as weird because I think, and they still haven't fixed it. So that's just one of my weird things that I wrote down, and maybe someday I'll use that. Um, Scary. I wrote down, I was on a train once traveling and I saw this road go by and it was Bones Bend Road. I was like, ooh, that'd be good for a good scary story. So, right, I just write things down that I hear or see or that interest me that I might use in a story someday. So, to me, it's much easier for me to keep it organized. Stacy also, oh, wait, Daryl, oh, Tamsin needs to leave at 11 for another event. Do we need her for anything else? Well, Tamsin, do you want to go ahead and mention that event and that is at 11 in case anyone wants to leave? And I'm going to copy the link in here.
Okay. So one of my good friends, and she also writes with Falstaff Books, is Jeannie Adams. And Jeannie, she used to also work at a mortuary. I believe she worked there with her husband when he was, and so she knows a lot about dead bodies. And so, like, for instance, when I was working on stuff for this book I'm going to be doing during Nano, I did a 2 hour chat with her on Zoom because I just needed to know some information about how long the body had been there, what it was going to be like when it came out. So she speaks and she does a panel at every convention she goes to called Body Disposal for Writers. And so it's standing room only usually. And she's doing it for free today at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So that's now. And so that's where I'm heading. And Sonia has given you the link. It will go on for about 2 hours and then she'll take questions. So if you come in a little late, it won't be a big deal. So anyway, that's where I'm headed.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me on here. And you should be able to find me in the Nano world. My book's registered. I'm just under just Tamsin Silver. So if you want to reach out to me on my Nano page, or you want to go to my website and ask me anything, if you want help with anything, that's what we're all here for. We're here to help you with what you're doing. And there's nothing I love more than helping people do what they love and write. So you can go to my website at tamsinsilver.com. At the very top in the bar, you'll see Ask Tamsin, and you can just reach out. Okay.
Cool. Thank you, Tamsin.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good rest of your meeting. Maybe I'll see you over on the other side.
Okay, and everyone else is saying thank you, Tamsin, too.
Awesome. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Cool. And just so you guys know, we are definitely not going till 1 because we've already almost covered everything. But we are still going to go over scheduling your writing time with Rainey. And then I'm going to talk about events for NaNoWriMo, how to sign up for those, where to find them. So Rainey, you're up next.
Yeah, so for me, like most everybody else, 1,700 words can be hard to come by, and the time to write it. I think first and foremost, finding out when it is that you work best. Some people are morning people and their imagination runs better in the morning. I'm much more of like a late morning, early afternoon person, so I will try to make time between like 10 and 2, be it my lunch hour, or I'll even the breaks that you get in between work, the 15-minute breaks you get. I have a desk job, so I will actually say, okay, here's my 15-minute break, close out my email and stuff for work, and just open up whatever document it is that I'm using and just go to town. That's also kind of why I like Google Docs when I'm writing NaNoWriMo, because it doesn't matter if I'm at work at a work computer, at home on my home computer, or if I don't have a computer, I have my phone on me and I can at least get a couple hundred words during my 15-minute break just tapping out stuff. So, and I also tend not to like to write on the weekend because I write so hard and so long during the week that I need that breather. So I'll actually do 2,000 words to 2,100 words, and I'll just try to cram them in. I'll get up 10 minutes earlier than I normally do just to get a few words in, and it kind of gets you motivated, because as you're on your way to work, or at least on your way to the living room to sit at your desk now that COVID and all that, but that extra 10 minutes of just maybe a couple of sentences makes you feel good about the fact that you've got something already done for the day, and it's slightly less in your head of, oh my gosh, I still have 1,500 words to go. And also plan for things to go wrong. Family, it's November, so you've got Thanksgiving, you've got family events, hopefully, given all of this. But you've got family events, people get sick in the winter time. So try to stay, I've always tried to stay ahead by a few hundred words each day so that I kind of build up a day or two of extra time, extra words, so that if I have one of those bad days, or if I get sick, or if I get to go hang out with family for an entire day, I'm not losing steam and I'm not losing where I am. I think for me, it really is just finding those little tiny nuggets of time, that 10 minutes here, 20 minutes there, and just having access to your story wherever it is. I don't know if Scrivener has like a web version, but I know like Google Docs, Word. I think we mentioned it in the chat. I've dabbled with Dabble before. It's a bit on the pricier side because it's a subscription, but it's totally web-based, so there's no software, and so I could log in wherever I was without having to worry about, oh, now I have to paste this section from this version to this desktop over here. And yeah, I mean, we all have busy lives, kids and work and family, and also mentioning to your family, I am doing this during November. It makes it a lot easier because one, they folks will respect that time, and they will also understand when you're getting flustered that, you know, maybe you're falling behind, or maybe you've got writer's block all of a sudden, and there'll be support. And that's also what all of the events are for that we're going to talk about in a few. That it I never use, I'm an introvert. I don't enjoy chatting with people so much, but this is super motivational, especially midway through November when gets angsty, and you know, you're worried that your story is falling apart, or things aren't working the way you wanted it to, or you're falling behind in your word count. And just having other folks to either bounce off ideas, or, you know, camaraderie in the anxiety of NaNoWriMo, because it's a lot of fun. It's also it can get very stressful, but that's kind of part of the fun. So yeah, just finding each one of those little nuggets of time has been what worked for me the most.
Cool. And I feel like I'm totally with you on that. Like the earlier I get it done, the better I feel about it. Um, yeah. Although for me, I know because all I have to worry about is a dog. I know that if I do get behind, I usually use my weekends to like catch up and then maybe get ahead as well. So I'll tend to spend a whole Saturday doing nothing but writing. Which can get hard because sometimes at that 1,600 word mark, I'm like, no, I can't write anymore. That's it. I'm done for today. But some days it does work out okay. Does anyone have any questions for Rainey on getting that writing done?
I mean, one of my years, goodness, probably back in 2015, I was doing really well, and I was ahead by like 6,000 words midway through, and I ended up having a family emergency that made me travel from Albuquerque out to Connecticut, and I fell behind by about 10K. Uh, but I took my computer with me, and then on the way back, you know, the layovers on the plane, you know, you just find that time to just crank out a bunch, and yeah.
Yeah, cool. So I hope I get this. Alan or Elaine says, do you reward yourself for making your count?
Heck yes. I buy all of the after Halloween candy uh, that are half price, and I will just set it down. And, especially if I only have the 1,700 words to do, as soon as I hit that, I'll stop and eat a Snickers. Or if I've only got that 10 or 15 minutes, again, if I can crank out before I start the day, a couple hundred words, yeah, I'll always reward myself with candy. That's my go-to.
I do not have the willpower to not eat the candy. So my reward is if I get the numbers done, I usually have a nice hot bubble bath and a cup of hot chocolate, maybe with a little rum in it sometimes. But yeah, that's my reward. And okay, so Joanna says, I'd like to reward myself weekly for making my week's count done. Awesome. And Kat says, do you have a specific plotting book you prefer to help you get as much prepared as you can before November?
Man, I try to keep it in one. Once I pull it off of the whiteboard I have, I try to keep it in one Word document, and I'll even color code it based on if it's, a character arc or if it's a scene details that I'm working with, and try to keep it all in that one space. And again, it ends up being a Google Doc, so I have two Google Docs open up side by side wherever I am. And uh, I, for somebody who plans as much as I do, you would think I would have a better system than a giant set of bullet points. Uh, but that's been what I've worked with thus far.
Cool. And Joanna says there is a family accountability with weekly rewards. Everyone gets to go to Starbucks, but only if I get my work. I love that idea because then you're encouraging the family to help you get it done too. That's awesome. My dog doesn't like Starbucks though, so that won't work for him. I have to think of something. No, I love that. That's awesome. All righty. Anything else, Rainey?
No, I think I'm good.
All right. I'm going to move on to talking about the schedule for uh, NaNoWriMo. Make sure you go to nanowrimo.org and sign up because that's also where you're going to keep track of your word count. You can create your project. So I've got my project in there, The Rise of Sky Sunderland. I already have my cover. Well, that's going to have to change a little bit. But when you go in here, make sure you add your community location, which is Albuquerque. Or if you're in Santa Fe, I think Santa Fe has their own page. I'm not positive. Is there anyone here on here from Santa Fe? And let me know, Rainey, if they say yes. Oh. Okay. Well, when you tell NaNoWriMo where you're from, it gives you a community. So I am in the community New Mexico, Albuquerque, and when I click on that, it takes me to this beautiful picture that I must have uploaded because I've been up to the top of the Sandias when it snowed. It's been a while though. And if you scroll down, you'll see updates from me or Kim, and we'll also send them as an email if they're really, really important. And then the events are under this tab, so kind of hidden. But if you click the events tab, right now, all I have right now are the virtual kickoff because Kim and I need to meet and talk about when we're going to have all the other events. The kickoff, basically, it's going to be a Zoom meeting. It starts at 11 p.m. on October 31st, and everyone is encouraged to wear costumes, masks, hats, whatever you want to wear. And from 11 to noon, we just get to know each other. We talk about our story ideas. If you don't have a story idea, we'll give you some, we'll work on that. And then at midnight, we start sprinting. And sprinting is basically typing as fast as you can within a time limit. And I will actually have some prizes that I will mail out to sprint winners. And the idea, is you type as fast as you can. And what's interesting is eventually you start getting into this sprinting and you write things you didn't expect to write. Some of it's total crap, some of it's beautiful. So, but sprinting helps you get your writing done faster, keeps you from thinking too much about it. There is also a Facebook group. So if you're not in the Facebook group, you might want to check that out. And I was going to give you a link and I forgot to pull up the
Elaine is also asking if there are still spaces for the forums.
spaces for the forums. What does that mean?
The community forum?
Is there a community forum? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yes. So I think Nano, and so I kind of hate the forums. Kim is in there though. If you go to forums, it takes you off of the NaNoWriMo page, I think. Yeah, it's taking a moment and sends me to this other page where there are forums. I don't know how to use it. I haven't touched this in a while, especially since they changed it. But if you like the forums, I would say check that out. There's lots of conversations in there, lots of people talking about story ideas. But Kim is really the best person to talk about that. So maybe that's also, if you can join us at the kickoff, maybe she can share her insight into the forums. Let me show you our Facebook group. If you're not in there, it's NM NaNoWriMo Write-ins. And this is especially for, let's say you want to host a virtual write-in. You can use Zoom for free. Zoom has, you can use it up to 45 minutes for free. So you could invite people to your Zoom meeting if you're alone and bored and want people to talk to. Just know that, you know, these write-ins are not just for talking. Like, we're going to be quiet and we're going to type and we're going to write. So when you come to my write-ins, I definitely do sprints. Kim doesn't necessarily do sprints a lot, but you know, it's nice to just hang out with people. All right, I'm going to stop sharing so I can see what else is going on here. Oh, there's two separate spaces for forums. Last year they were in two places. Okay, yeah. So it's in one place now. I think just because they were migrating everything to that new platform that's external from the Nano site is just why there were two places. You can also use the Facebook page, the Facebook group to, if you have issues, that's where I live practically, is on Facebook. So if you have issues, you have questions, you can post them in there. Do you have to live in New Mexico to join the virtual kickoff? Nope. I don't know you're not in New Mexico. So if you want to join our virtual kickoff, you're more than welcome to. Can you send the FB link? Yes, I can. Let me pull that up. And Rainey, do you have a website?
Or,
Well, how do people check out your poetry book?
oh goodness, yeah, myname.com, so RENEMULLEN.com.
Okay.
Yeah, poetry, and that's what I just published a book, and yeah, next month I'll be attempting to write a second manuscript during Nano.
All right, I'm pulling it up right now. Whoops. Okay, spell your, oh no, that's right. This is the one. I'm going to share this. So I just shared the Facebook group. If you went in and asked to be added, if you're here and you're not from New Mexico, just say yes to all the questions that I ask and I'll let you in. I'm really picky about, we get a lot of weird people who try to join the Facebook group and I'm like, no. So I try to keep it just to people who are really actually doing NaNoWriMo and not, you know, trying to like be weird or anything. So that's Rainey's website as well. And in case you want to check me out, that's my website. All right, so we have gone through everything, all the things. Any other questions about Nano website, Facebook page, all that stuff? I'm also going to quickly share that event that Tamsin is at right now, because I know I want to go check out how to hide the bodies. Okay, so I did find an interesting fact. I was watching a show about composting, and if you compost a dead body, the cadaver dogs cannot smell it. Interesting, right? I haven't had a murder mystery that I could use that with, but just FYI, right? But you have to have the right, there's a composting formula for this whole thing. So, but yeah, I thought that was interesting. All right, and there's the link again for the other Zoom meeting. And awesome. Well, thank you all for coming. Thank you, Rainey, for your help. And I will see you. And Rainey, are you going to schedule any write-ins as well?
Ooh, goodness, probably a couple, yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so I will get a meeting with you and Kim and we'll put a schedule together. You guys will see more events scheduled soon. And you're welcome. I hope this is super helpful. And maybe I'll see you in the getting rid of bodies thing. All right, bye everybody.